Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pyware Night School. Tonight we're going to go through indoor and using Pyware for indoor writing. Um, First, I'm going to start out and let's take a look at the grid designer. Um, if anybody has any questions, please type them in the chat. Make sure that you have selected all panelists and attendees. That way everybody can see the questions as we answer them. There's also a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. If you want to post a question, you can do that there as well, and we can answer it aloud here. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to go ahead and open our grid designer. So our grid designer comes with several preloaded grids that you can utilize. Let's pull this over here so you can see it. So we have a lot of grids that are available. Depends on what size of grid, as well as what different subdivision you like. We have a 5x5 grid, which gives you a 30-inch step. And then you have this one, a 6-foot indoor grid, which is I believe it's a 24-inch step, or 12 or 24-inch step, depends on which grid you've selected. And then we have our standard 8x5 subdivisions. Typically what I would recommend is coming in and you want to, let's say you want to customize your grid to something specific for your tarp that you have. So first what we would do is we'd come in and identify the size of grid that we want, or the closest size grid to the subdivision that we're wanting. So let's say I want to run the 5x5 grid, and we have a couple of odd shaped or odd sized tarps down here already. So let's do a convert to a 48 by 78. Okay, so let's see what we have that's closest. Let's do a 50 by 80. So we're going to pull this down to 48 by 78. Okay, so this is what we have here. We've got 50 by 70. Let's convert it to a 48 by 78. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and we're going to find 48 feet divided by 3 divided by 2, because we work in yards. So on front to back, I'm going to set this to 8 yards. Okay, so I'm going to click on this. I need to set it to 8 yards. What that's going to do is it's not going to work for me at this subdivision. What I can actually do is I can come in and set these to go to a different snapping option. So if I do 6 steps to every 1 yard, that's going to make to where every step is a half of a foot. Or I can do 3 steps to a yard, and then I get every foot. Okay, so we have 16. Okay, so what I can do is I can pull these in. However, once I come back to my 6-to-5 stride, it's going to have both the front and the back sideline off of a starting step. So what I want to do is I want to decide where I want the starting set to be, or the starting step to be on a whole step. This is where you'd need to make the decision if I'm going to be measuring from the front or the back. A lot of people have their pits up front, so normally they want to measure from the back. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to have this snap. Okay, so now I'm going to take my calculator here. So we have 16 minus 8.33. So I'm going to need to have the front sideline reach 7.67. So we're going to come in here, do our top to bottom. 3 to 1 yard. 766 will be good for us. And I'm going to put my yard line here. And I'm going to convert this back to a 6-to-5, so that gives us our 30-inch step. So now I have my 48 feet distance front to back, and we're going to do the same left to right. So I have 78 feet divided by 3 divided by 2. That puts us at 13 yards, which we're going to have to do the same subdivision here. So we're going to do 3 steps to 1 yard, which is going to give me 1 foot increments. So that means I can pull these in. So now I have my new grid size here. Convert this back 6 to 5 for our stride size that we're working with. And then we just want to make sure that our subdivisions are all correct. Okay, it looks like we have 2-step to a subdivision, and then a major division line, we have 4 steps. Okay. Once we have that selected, we can go ahead and choose Save As to give us a saving window. Save this as a 48 by 78 or 68 or 48 by 78, I'm sorry. Okay, 48 foot by 78. So now we have this grid to work with later on as well. We say okay, and now we have our grid. And we can snap it up here. Yes, Scott, you can actually change those to be whatever increments you want. So we go to our grid designer. Right now we have this listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or what you can do is you would click on your large oval here, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. That's going to pull up my custom marker value. What do you want the center marker to be? You want it 0, okay, and then you want 4 steps out. So you'd click on the oval, so that becomes 4, and then marker 8, 12. And at this point in time, what we can do is we can actually remove this marker if you don't want it by right-clicking on it. And then that means what that's going to do is it's only going to reference this outside marker here. So you're not going to have a marker being referenced that's not on what you'd consider a whole step. So now when I enter performers, it's going to only reference these marks. And the same goes for your markers here. So for example, right here, this is not on a whole step, so I can actually right-click to remove that. And I can have our first marker start at A here. And work backwards. B, C, where did my mouse go? There we go. Okay. And now we have all of our markers labeled exactly like we want. When we have a performer down, the page down, or my page is not going down. Okay. Let me launch a non-beta version. I'm going to go ahead and do sample indoor. Pull this up. And let's get Photoshop up here so we can work with our indoor tarp. So for our tarp, what we're going to want to do is we want to make sure that we are in the same ratio. So we've got 48 foot by 78 foot. So let's work with that. So what I would do is create a image that is a 480 by 780 image. And we can scale up if we need to. Now, if you have an image from your printer, all you'd need to do is scale that down. When you're working with a tarp image, you don't want to have anything that is larger than 2048 pixels. It's going to become very large as you work on the screen with it. So let's open our drill here. Our sample indoor. Okay. So we have our opening page here. And then when we do our print coordinates, it is then going to reference those custom yard lines outside the 8-yard line on the B yard line. And you can change these horizontal, instead of saying yard line, say marker. It gives you a little bit more flexibility on how this is printed out. And home and visitor can be changed to stage front, stage back, whichever way you want to do it. Photoshop is a separate software. You can use Photoshop or GIMP. Basically, it's an image manipulation software. So I've got my image here that is 780 by 480. And then you can come in and start creating whatever your floor is. Ideally, you would have your floor image already. Let's see if I have one here. I might have one. There we go. So I have a tarp here that we have already created. I'm going to stretch this out to make sure it's my correct ratio. Maybe a little bit larger. Alrighty. So I've got my image here. It's the correct ratio. I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to choose a PNG file. And we're going to say indoor sample floor. All right. And then I have two ways of loading this. We can load it inside the grid designer, choosing floor cover. This will work. Okay, as you can see here, it's going to load up as the full color. It does sometimes make it a little more difficult here to see. What you can actually do is take the transparency down in Photoshop. Or the other option you have is Go ahead and remove this one. Yes, I'll remove it. I can load it as a floor cover in my floor cover tool. Choose my floor cover image. And I can change the opacity here. So let's say 50% opacity. As you can see, that makes it much easier to see and write on. Change it even lighter if I wanted to. And then the floor is also seen here. And we have our markers listed here. We can toggle the type of markers that we see here. If you want to have the markers off, you will need to add a surface here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a solid color black. And what that's going to do is it's going to have a black surface behind it. So now you can actually toggle that on and off. You can also add your venue. Say I wanted to change to, let's see, square indoor performance. Or a rectangular indoor performance area. And now we have our indoor grid and our indoor venue. Any questions so far on how to create a custom grid or load a custom grid and then also put a floor cover on it? All right, let's move on then. Okay, so after talking to several people, most people are having trouble understanding how to utilize the ability to move individual performers. So let's go ahead and toss a couple of people out here. So we have our point tool that allows us to actually click and add performers onto the field or onto the design surface. Okay. Go ahead and label these here. Let's adjust our size to make it a little bit easier to see. So now we can see our labels here. All right, so as you know, you can actually select all the performers and draw any shape that you want. Just go ahead and do a proximity match here. Test our animation. Oh, I actually do it over a range. That happens to me too. Okay. All right, do our proximity match and make sure that our animation looks all right. So we can create any type of form, but a lot of people are actually wanting to stage these on the fly. I've had people wanting just to move independent performers. And some people just don't know that you can simply click on the adjuster tool without selecting anybody. And then you can click and drag anyone you want to a different location. And this creates the pathway for you. So let's go ahead and add another page tab here. Let's say I just want to kind of pull this in. And right now I have this to where the performers are going to snap to the grid. I can adjust the way it snaps by using this function up here. It's going to allow me to do half step, quarter step, and the newest update that's going to be rolling out here shortly, there's also now going to be a third step option, so you can snap to third steps. So now that we have this inside our adjuster tool, we can also adjust the pathway that the performers are taking. So you'd select the performer that you want to modify, put it to its final location, and once you've got that done, you can choose your edit path. What that's going to do is it's going to show a bunch of handles here and allow you to edit that path directly. I'm going to choose a curved path option. I'm going to reduce the number of handles. It works very similar to the morph tool, how you drag the handles there. So let's say I just wanted to have a zigzag path happening. Okay, so now I can actually watch these march, and all of these dots that you see along this pathway are going to be each count location that that is going to be at. So you can actually see how this is happening. You can turn off the edit path. This also gives you the ability to edit. If I hold on my shift key, I can select two performers. I can do edit path here, a couple of less handles, and what it's going to do is it's going to modify that path of both selected performers at the same time. So the adjuster tool is very flexible in what you can do for creating different pathways or just simply dragging and moving performers. Once I'm done with those, I can select deselect and then continue on with my forms. Let's get this done here. So let's say I want all of these to take some zigzag paths. Edit our path, get our handles here. So I have those now. Say I wanted to tweak the ending location for everybody, and since I have everybody still selected, it's going to move that location, and then it's going to interpolate the existing pathways to keep that same curvature without having to modify it again. And there we go. So the adjuster tool can be used to create new transitions instead of only modifying existing transitions. I'll go ahead and accept our changes. Now, the big thing about this is all of these custom pathways are difficult to teach without being able to see them. So we added the ability to show the pathways in the software. Then you also can utilize that function to create arrows for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch my arrow tool, and I'm going to choose the option for create arrows from paths. It's going to create an arrow for all 12 performers, and we'll say yes. So I can turn off my pathways, and now I have arrows showing my custom pathway going from my starting location to my ending location very, very quickly. Previously, that would take forever to do that by hand. And this can be utilized for any type of transition. So if you've done a follow the leader where you're following a form around, this allows you to do that. Any questions with the adjuster tool? Okay. And the same can be done with, if you wanted to use the follow the leader tool individually, select a performer, and you can create a pathway as such. And the pathways function works on the performers that you have selected. So let's say you only need to show a pathway for a single performer or a limited number of performers. You would select that performer and then add the arrow. Anything that you'd like to see in regards to any utilizing this for indoor? Or any questions on anything that you need to be brushed back up on? I know we're now at the start of the year, so some people are able to get back in the swing of things, and some are just learning new. Any questions whatsoever, guys? Okay, let's see here. I know some people are utilizing props indoors, so let's touch base on that right quick. Brantley here, we have a question on how to create a sequential visual. Okay, so let us go ahead and put in our visuals here. I'm going to go ahead and just set everybody up as a flag for now. And I'm going to, they're at attention. So now in my real view, zoom in here. I have everybody at attention here. Okay. So what we're going to want to do is have a rippled visual. Let's take a look. So we collapse down. Let's delete this. So we have this to work with. Okay. So to create a saved visual, what we want to do is right now we are at a attention. So let's say we wanted to create a couple subsets here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a maneuver that goes from attention 1. So we're going to do an X carve that is going to last for 8 counts. I'm going to move my anchors here. Then I'm going to do another X carve for 8 counts. And then I'm going to finish with a butterfly for 8 counts. It helps if I actually press accept on each time. So as you can see here, we're going to X carve, 8 counts, ending at apply. Move my anchors to the next 8 counts. X carve, 8 counts, ending at and apply. And then I'm going to select my butterfly, 8 counts, ending at. So now my one performer is going to do my all right. So I have my transitions here. So being that it's going to take 24 counts to do this, and I have how many? 12. I'm going to have 24 and then an additional 12. Let's see. It's going to put me at 60 counts. So let's put a page tab at 60. All right. So what I'm going to do is I've got my additional page tab here that's going to take the entire range for us. I'm going to select the performer that I have created my template with. I'm going to choose edit and choose copy. I am now going to select my range that I want the entire visuals to be applied over. I'm going to select my entire group of performers. I am then going to select Paste Visuals from the Edit menu. Paste Visuals is going to give me several options here. I'm going to choose Sequence, so it's going to be a ripple. And I'm going to select my visual series because I had created a series of visuals over that range. When I say Accept here, it's going to start sequencing that from the beginning of our form. The beginning of our form is indicated by the green. The end of our form is indicated by the red. So it's going to start the visuals here, and then one by one, every count is going to go all the way down. So let's pull this up. If I actually did that right. Edit, paste visuals, sequence, everyone count, and my range. Okay, and accept. And here we go. And now we have our sequence visuals. And there you go, Brantley. And that's how you do a sequenced visual. All right, looks like Patty has a startup of a new drill. So let's go ahead and start fresh. Let's save my sample file here. I'm going to do a new drill. 2021 magical drill. I'm going to create it as a new drill file and say OK. So we have our opening set. We have nothing on the page. I'm going to go ahead and put a page tab down at count 0. So Patty wants to do a block of 30 performers. So I have my block tool. Let's just say we're starting dead center over here. All right. So the way you enter forms actually defines how it's created as groups. In the block tool, the first line that you create is going to be the row or the column that they're grouped in. So all of these are going to be grouped horizontally. So if I wanted to actually pull that out into columns, what I want to do is have my my second handle going down. So now I'm going to be able to create columns. So I want to say front to back, I have 5. Left to right, I have 6. Well, that gives me my now 30 performers. And I can adjust my snapping to whole steps so that I can make sure that I am drawing this properly. So I want to do a 4x4. All right. Can drag my editing handle anywhere. Okay, so now we have our 30 position block in 5 rows and 6 columns. I accept this. Now when I select this, as you can see, because I put my first point here, my second point here, I have my columns. Okay, so let's work from that to create a transition. Okay, so we can, let's say we want to create a parallelogram. So we have a couple of ways of doing that. I can come in here and I can choose my resize tool and go to the slant functionality, grab a handle and slant it this way, or slant it this way. Okay. do this and just grab it and shift it where you want it. So now we have created our parallelogram. Patty, does that kind of cover the question you had? Roxanne, Shannon, anybody else have any questions on just basics of entering performers and modifying them? And we can go from there. Let's then move into, let's say, a follow the leader. Do follow the leader. And what this is going to do is all of these dots here are our leaders. So I'm going to be defining what my green leader is doing. And this is going to follow back. Let's say I wanted that interval to actually collapse while it goes back. And what I can do is I can select these performers. I go into my drawing tool here. I'm going to then create our block over again. Okay, and I can make sure that our performers are matched. So I'm going to do a custom match here, choose to clear. Actually, I want it to be a 4x4 block. So if these are all marching back, I want to make sure that my leader is this person. I'm going to just continue back. I'm going to choose my predict next. So what that's going to do is utilize the matching and the grouping we already have to create the subsequent matching lines based on the order I'm selecting. I can go ahead and accept this form now. What I'm going to do now is apply a follow the leader to it. Okay, and now what this is going to do is it's going to create a follow the leader that is going to have a collapsing interval while it moves. So we'll pull our slanted block up, and now it's going to collapse as it's marching. And once we like that, we go ahead and say, okay, accept, and here we go. Any other questions while we're here? If there's no other questions, then I think that's a nice point to end on. We've got everything covered, I think, to get you jump started back in the new year. And if you're doing indoor, very good. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.